Just a little warning that this review contains some spoilers for the movie The Strangers, so if you haven't seen it yet and don't want to be spoiled, then please click away right now. Thank you. So, The Strangers. Two people getting terrorized by a bunch of strangers in masks who presumably want to kill them. Captivating plot, right? Well, I thought so, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to see the movie. It had an interesting plot and it was a horror movie. And since I'm a sucker for horror films, I couldn't resist. And yeah, I am late again, but better late than never, I always say. Since the movie recently came out on DVD and Blu-ray, and because I've been seeing so many commercials for it on TV and on MySpace, I gave it a look. Apparently, the movie is inspired by true events. According to production notes, the film was inspired by an event from director Brian Bertino's childhood. A stranger came to his home asking for someone who was not there, and Bertino later found out that empty homes in the neighborhood had been broken into that night. In interviews, Bertino stated that he was, quote, very impressed with some of the theories circulating on the internet about the true events the movie is allegedly based on, but said his main inspiration was Helter Skelter, a true crime book about the 1969 Manson family murders. So, anyway, on to the actual movie itself. Scott Speedman plays James Hoyt in the film, and Liv Tyler played Kristen McKay. A spooky narrative welcomes us into the film by giving us some unsettling statistics compiled by the FBI in regards to violent crimes committed in America each year, saying over 1.4 million crimes that are violent occur in America each year. Wow, is all I've got to say about that. It proceeds to say that on the night of February 11, 2005, Kristen McKay and James Hoyt went to a friend's wedding reception and then returned to the Hoyt family's summer home. The brutal events that took place there are still not entirely known. Whether that part is true or not, I'm not sure. So, what did I think of the movie? Well, I thought it was pretty good. We learned at the start of the film that the reason for James and Kristen having an awkward car ride not talking to each other when they get to James's house is because James proposed to Kristen earlier that night, but Kristen rejected his proposal, and she later reveals that she's simply not ready for that type of commitment yet. Right when James and Kristen are gonna get nasty, there's a loud knock on the door. What's suspicious about that, you may ask? It's 4 o'clock in the morning. And if someone knocked on my door at 4 a.m., I'd be nervous, I'm not gonna lie. James opens the door to see one of the strangers at the door, but she's not wearing the mask. Instead, her identity is covered by the night. She asks if Tamara is there, and James says no. The movie starts to pick up in suspense after James leaves the house to pick up some cigarettes for Kristen. The same stranger returns to the house, asking again for Tamara. Kristen tells her, without even opening the door, to go away, telling her she had already been there. The knocking simply continues, and understandably, Kristen starts to get worried, and from there, the horror of the film begins. I thought the movie itself was pretty solid. Is it scary? Well, not really. I mean, if you're scared easily, then you might do the jump a few times. I jumped about 4 or 5 times during the movie. Oh no, though, it's not all that scary. Another question one might ask is whether or not The Strangers was predictable, and my answer is that, well, out of 10 situations, about maybe 4 of them were predictable. I thought the most predictable moment was when Kristen went out to the shed to call for help using the CB radio. Honestly, when do the people in danger in horror movies ever get the help they need? Before Kristen could tell the man on the other line where she was, one of the strangers smashed the radio with an axe. That was just painfully predictable. Another predictable moment came, I believe, after the CB radio incident. Kristen runs back to the house where the man in the mask, who I believe is the most intimidating one out of the 3 strangers, is looking for her and James. Kristen predictably hides in the closet, since the dumb fucks always hide in their closet. Then again, I guess it makes sense, since the house they were in was isolated and the strangers had already ruined the car James and Kristen were attempting to escape with, which is also pretty predictable. But anyway, Kristen hides in the closet and we're taken inside with her, and the camera shows the man in the mask walking past the closet like all the villains do, and he proceeds to sit down at the table. Kristen tries to get a better view of the man in the mask when suddenly one of the other strangers jumps in front of the closet. That was predictable, but I will admit that I still jumped. Now, I don't mean to cause any arguments or anything like that when I say this, but I think Scott Speedman was overall better than Liv Tyler in this film. I mean, sure, Liv Tyler was okay at acting in this movie, but she wasn't always convincing to me. At times, she appeared to be forcing the fear her character was portraying. And don't get me wrong, I am not saying she was bad at her role, not at all. I just think Scott Speedman portrayed the fear and anxiety the characters were feeling more effectively than Liv Tyler. One question, though. You remember when James accidentally shot his friend Mike in the head with a shotgun, mistaking him for the man in the mask? And you remember when James finally realized it was Mike he shot and he kept telling Kristen to go back into the corner? Why did he tackle her when she refused to comply with his orders? It was just kind of funny to me. Anyway, the movie itself was around an hour and a half, like most movies these days are, and around the first hour and 15 minutes of it were just the strangers messing around with James and Kristen, just scaring them by knocking on the doors, writing shit on the walls and windows of the house, and preventing them from escaping. Then after the strangers finally get James and Kristen to where they want them, I thought it went downhill. After the Man in the Mask tackles Kristen and drags her, Kristen and James wake up and it's light outside, which is unusual in horror films. Usually horror films take place at night and still are at night when they end. But anyway, James and Kristen awake tied up to chairs with the strangers looking right at them. Kristen asks why they're doing this, and their response is simple: because you were home. That's an interesting answer, in that these people are being portrayed as people who just enjoy to torture and kill people, and it gives off the impression that they have done this before, if they were sincere in their response to Kristen, that is. Kristen shows James that the wedding ring he gave to her last night was on her finger, and James and Kristen profess their love to each other, since they know their lives are about to end. What happens next is just garbage. The Man in the Mask proceeds to stab James and then kneels down and stabs him lightly in the heart. He gives the knife to one of the other strangers and she proceeds to do the same thing to Kristen. We're then taken to the two boys who are giving away brochures for some Catholic organization. The strangers happen to be passing by them and ask for one. When asked if they're sinners, they reply, sometimes. They're then given the brochures and one of the strangers says something like, it'll be easier next time, which of course is a hint that there will be a sequel. In fact, Rogue Pictures producers confirmed to Variety that a sequel is in the works, due for filming in 2009. Anyway, the boys go inside the house to find the bloody bodies of James and Kristen. When one of the boys goes on to touch Kristen, she awakens screaming and reaching out to the boy, and the movie just ends. I mean, what are they trying to pull Sopranos or something and cut things off? And I hope I got the shirt right, the one that cut things off on the finale, like in mid-sentence or something. I mean, what the hell? You're seriously ending the movie like that? So is Kristen dead? Is James dead? Why the hell did Kristen do that? Did she mistake the boy for one of the strangers? God damn it. Well, overall, the first hour and 15 minutes was pretty enjoyable, although it was a bit predictable. The ending was just not worth it. It was just too quick and very anticlimactic, to say the least. Out of 10, I give the movie a 6 out of 10. Pretty good movie, but the ending just sucked fuck. If you're a fan of the horror movie genre, as I am, I'd recommend it. Am I looking forward to The Strangers 2? Yes, I am.